Today, I bring you another powerful, emotional story from the trenches of World War I. This is the story of a soldier, a secret diary, and a mission that no one expected him to survive. Let's begin. In 1916, the Western Front stretched endlessly across Belgium and northern France, a place where mud and blood became as familiar as air and sky. Among the young men arriving was James Jim Whittaker, barely 19, tall, thin, with bright eyes that betrayed both curiosity and fear. He had enlisted to serve his country, but he carried with him a small leather-bound diary, a gift from his older brother who had been killed the year before. In that diary were sketches of home, dreams of the future, and words of encouragement he clung to like a lifeline. He tucked it carefully inside his coat and stepped into the trenches for the first time. The trenches were a labyrinth of mud, water, and despair. Soldiers moved cautiously, keeping low, the smell of smoke, blood, and decay ever present. Rats scuttled along wooden planks, and every sudden noise could be death itself. Jim quickly learned the rhythm of survival duck. Crawl, shoot, repeat, but the hardest lesson was keeping hope alive in a place that had none. It was here he met William Will Harris, a seasoned 27-year-old soldier who had seen more horrors than any man should. Will had a sharp wit that cut through fear and a laugh that could lift spirits even during bombardments. He immediately took Jim under his wing, showing him how to navigate the trenches, how to patch wounds, how to hide fear, and most importantly, how to remember that they were still human. Will often spoke of home, of his wife and child, and of simple pleasures like fresh bread and sunlight on grass, things that seemed unimaginable amid the chaos of war. Jim listened, absorbed every word, and silently promised himself that if he survived, he would remember every story, every dream. Mont passait. The autumn rains came, turning trenches into rivers of mud. Boots were useless, fingers cracked, and soldiers lost both hope and strength. Yet even in this darkness, Jim found small comforts. He would sit beside Will in the evening, sketching in his diary, imagining a peaceful life beyond the mud. Will would tell stories to make him laugh, and for a moment, the war faded. But the front lines always returned, ruthless and unforgiving. In the winter of 1917, their battalion was ordered to attack a heavily fortified German position along the Somme. The night before the assault, Jim and Will shared a quiet moment. "If we make it through," Will said, holding Jim's shoulder, "I want to open a small pub when this is over. Warm food, warm fire, no uniforms, no orders, just people laughing. You in?" Jim nodded, gripping his diary. "I'll be there, I promise." They clasped hands, and that promise became a shield against the unknown that awaited them. The morning came with an eerie silence, broken suddenly by the roar of artillery. Jim and Will crawled forward, mud sucking at their boots, machine gun fire cutting through the air. Explosions flung earth and debris in every direction. Soldiers' fails, screams, and shouts, blending with the thundering sky. Jim's heart pounded as he pressed himself to the mud, clutching his diary tightly. He watched as men around him were struck down, their bodies disappearing into the muck. Will kept him moving, pulling him forward, covering him when shells landed near. At one point, a mortar exploded so close that Jim thought the ground would swallow him whole. He felt a hand on his back. It was Will guiding him, steadying him, keeping him alive. But fate was cruel. A second mortar hit near them, and Jim was thrown forward, landing hard. Dazed, he blinked to see Will lying motionless, a pool of mud and blood forming beneath him. "No," Jim whispered. He crawled to him, shaking him, hoping desperately that Will was joking, that he would laugh, that he would move. But Will did not stir. The young soldier cradled his friend, the diary slipping from his coat into the mud, pages soaked, ink blurred. He felt the weight of the world in that moment, the full cost of war pressing down on him. Yet in the midst of despair, he remembered the stories Will had told, the dreams of bread, laughter, and life beyond the trenches. He promised silently that he would survive, that he would honor Will, that he would keep hope alive, even when every piece of the world said it was gone. Jim spent the next months performing near-impossible tasks. He carried wounded men across no man's land, sometimes under fire, often crawling over shattered earth, mud clinging to every inch of his body. Bullets tore past. And yet he continued, driven by a force stronger than fear. The promise to Will, the hope in his brother's diary, the letters from home. Each night, he would write in the diary, recording what he saw, what he felt, and what he survived. The words became both confession and lifeline. In spring 1918, Jim's unit was tasked with defending a critical position against a German offensive. The battle was chaotic, smoke and fire blending into a nightmare. Jim led young recruits, guiding them through trenches, shouting orders, covering their retreat when necessary. He crawled across open ground to rescue a soldier trapped under barbed wire, pulling him to safety as shells exploded around them. Exhaustion and fear were constant companions, but he held on to the diary and the memory of Will, whispering to himself that survival was not just about living it, was about carrying the stories of those who could not. Eventually, Jim was gravely injured. A sniper's bullet struck him in the shoulder and chest, sending him sprawling into the mud. Eli visioned blood, rain mixing with blood, and reached instinctively for the diary. He whispered to the empty field, "I'm not leaving you behind. I won't forget you." Medics found him hours later, carrying him to a makeshift field hospital. He woke weeks later on a cot by the English coast, weak and scarred, but alive. The war had taken friends, innocence, and countless dreams. Yet he survived. He clutched the diary, inked pages now tattered, and vowed to tell the stories of those who never returned. When he finally returned home, the landscape was peaceful, almost alien. Families reunited. Flowers bloomed where trenches had scarred the earth. Jim's mother wept when she saw him, holding him tight, as if the war could be washed away in her embrace. But he knew the world he had left behind would never truly leave him. He opened the diary and read the sketches and notes, remembering Will, his brother, and all those who had perished. He made a decision to honor them in the only way he could by keeping their memory alive. Years later, Jim opened a small pub in his hometown, a cozy place with warm light, wooden tables, and the smell of baked bread. He hung the diary on a wall behind the counter, a testament to courage, hope, and friendship. People came for food and drink, but Jim baked in spirit for those who could not. Every evening, he touched the diary and whispered, "We survived. We remember." His story became a quiet legend in the town, a reminder that even in the darkest times, humanity, courage, and hope could endure. Even in death, his friends and comrades were not forgotten. When Jim passed away peacefully many years later, the diary remained, placed beside him in his old home, ensuring that the memories of the trenches, the fallen, and the promises made would never vanish. And though the war ended, the stories lived on, inspiring generations to remember courage, sacrifice, and the bonds forged in fire. If you felt the weight of this story, please like, subscribe, and share to honor the countless untold tales of the First World War. Every soldier had a story, and every story deserves to be remembered.